Welcome to This Week in Heresy, Episode 8, The Art of Spiritual Teaching, with our guest via Skype, Athena Wallander. Hi, Athena. Welcome to This Week in Heresy.
Hello.
Hey. So, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? And I know we're going to have in the show notes, too. So, and what you do, and like tell people what you do. And then we'll talk a little more after that.
I assume we're not meaning my mundane life. Well, if I have one of those anymore.
Right.
Okay, so basically, I practice lots of magic and have for lots of years. About 25 of them now. I'm getting old. Yeah. I practice Enochian magic, and I work with the Goetia daemons and other Grimoire daemons. Those are my two favorite aspects of the path. Also, Abramelin magic is quite awesome. Let's see, what else do I fiddle around with? I also practice martial arts to balance things out and keep me all grounded, which is nice.
Yep.
And I make I make magic supplies for people as a, in quotes, job. When you love your job that much, is it really a job? But that's pretty much what I do. And
I hear you.
yeah, that's pretty much what takes up my day, and work with some other people on different magic projects and do experimentation's my favorite aspect.
You do trips sometimes too, right?
Oh, retreats?
Yeah.
Yes, once in a while. Usually what happens is nobody can coordinate the schedules, so I just do private one-on-one teaching usually, which is pretty awesome, though. I end up in various places around the world, and the person gets to learn magic, or they come here, and it's a lot of fun. I really love one-on-one teaching, actually.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What do you find is the hardest aspects of teaching? Especially being in the occult, because, there's some groups that it's easier to teach because they teach, like some sort of different type of based thing, or New Agey thing, or Christian based thing, or other religion based thing.
Most difficult. Let me see. Having the student listen to the good advice of, please slow down a bit. You're not quite ready for that yet. And please don't start teaching others yet. And perhaps doing that only once or twice a month as opposed to every couple of days would be awesome. And maybe who you're calling isn't quite who you think you're calling. Right. Those are some of the difficult aspects.
Yeah. Well, and I know we go through certain things as teachers, where a student may feel like they're ready for something, and you're just kind of like, no. No.
Oh, yeah, that happens a lot. Not that I'm one to talk, though. My poor teacher, he has a lot more gray hair than when I first met him.
Absolutely. Well, it's not like, we're kind of the same way, it's not like we tell our students, no, you absolutely cannot do this. It's not like, we're not like, it's above your grade,
Right? It's like, I don't recommend this.
Yeah. Or, just say, okay, you could do that, but you got to take the consequences for that. And you know what? It might be bad.
Right.
I know I find that teaching can be really amazing with, like, we have a couple students now that I'm just kind of like, they're just kind of like zoom off in the atmosphere. And I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. These are so awesome. And then there's some students you're just kind of like, right. Moving on. Yes.
There are definitely there are many, many, many positive aspects of teaching. Fortunately, it's just keeping them to slow down a bit. And sometimes they'll ask me, do you think I should do such and such? And unfortunately, sometimes the answer is, well, how important is your free will to you? Do you really like that free will of yours? If so, I kind of recommend avoiding that one.
Right. Well, it's also, you also have to, as a teacher, it's hard sometimes, at least I think so, is that, there's also the whole pastoral care aspect of that, and, trying to either guide people in spiritual ways, or working with the fallout of things, or just like saying, honey, I am not your therapist. You need to go find one.
I think that's probably 80% of teaching, but in different ways. Sometimes it's not so obvious,
Right.
like worded that way. Sometimes it's, well, here's some homework, and here I think you should work with this one, and here start focusing on the incenses to get all grounded and rooted. Here work with this particular daemon, so they can help you get through that crap. But yes, a lot of it is, okay, now how do we figure out how to get you past this one bit here?
Right. And, or like, you got to go figure out how to get past that bit because I can't do it for you, or I don't have anything for you. And you're, or you're starting to work with a spirit that I've never worked with. So go do some research, Google, do a little Google searching. Go to the library.
I would personally recommend Google, but yeah, I get the idea. Do some grimoire research.
Yeah. Pick up a book, figure it out.
The local library is really good.
Right.
Library alone is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I can always go to my seminary's library because I have found out that they do actually have some grimoires. It's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. I was pretty amazed by that, actually. So what do you find about, with the work that you do? Do you find yourself working with people that are very much multi-faith? Because a lot of what I've been talking about with previous guests is that we do a lot of multi-faith work. We work with different traditions or work with more than one tradition. So do you get a lot of people that do that? Like they work in more than one tradition?
Most definitely. The experienced folks already have a path. And depending on the path, sometimes I recommend just do this only for a couple of years to get it down instead of mixing and matching stuff. Because unfortunately, too many people like to mix and match, take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. Right. And they haven't mastered the other ones yet. So, and then brand new students, I'll be like, just stick to this for a year or two, please. But yes, a lot of multi-faith. I have 2 Christian students, actually. Like, one is very devout priest.
Awesome.
And they can work with my path just fine. And the funny thing is, so this one guy, he comes to me, and he's very devout Catholic and high up there and takes his practice very seriously. And he comes to me and says, yes, I want to work with the demons. And I'm like, okay, cool. What do you want to get out of this? Oh, I want A, B, and C. And I'm like, okay. So, people come and ask me to teach certain things, but I go by intuition and kind of what the spirits suggest, as that always works better. So I sat down with the guy and I said, okay, cool. So step 1 is first ask your deity what he recommends. Had him do that. Come on, priest level, you should be in contact right there. Then he talked to him. I said, okay, cool. Now maybe make sure this is okay that we're doing this, and et cetera, et cetera. So then we call a few. And I'm like, well, okay, so call your deity in and ask him to help with the connection or help you to do what you need to do to get them here. And so basically what happened is our week of teaching ended up me helping him get much closer with his deity, which is really hilarious because he came to work with demons, and here I am helping him to get closer with the Christian God and Yahweh. I don't think he's quite expecting that, but that's what he needed, and that's what he really wanted.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing I've tried to explain to people with my own search and journey about Wicca and Christianity is that, my Wiccan practices have allowed me to get really close to Jesus because I have certain skills that allow me to talk to him in a way that not many people do. And it just seems, sometimes it seems odd to me when people are like freak out about the magic work and think that it's not of God. And it's like, well, I'm pretty damn close to Jesus, actually. We're kind of buds.
Maybe they should reread the Bible, especially that King Solomon section. There's a couple of cool sections in there that talk about magicians. I don't know.
That's true. Well, I've always said that, Jesus, if you read the Bible and read the stories of Jesus, he's a magic worker. He's more of a healer than, some other types of magic. But there's one particular story of the woman who was bleeding. I don't know if you know this one, but the woman who was bleeding and she touches his cloak and he senses that the energy has gone out of him. And he's like, who did that? And, she's like, yeah, it was me. Sorry. and he's like, oh no, your faith has healed you. Go in peace or whatever. And it's like, that's pretty obvious that Jesus knew how to deal with energy and how to deal with magic.
Well, walking on water, yeah.
Well, yeah, I wish I could do that. That would be so much fun.
Maybe that's just a higher level, higher grade.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe talk to Jesus about that. Like, look, I would like that power.
Yeah, I'd be like, yo, J-Man.
But in my tradition, basically what you do for your work is you connect with your deity, whichever one. It might be one of the daemons, might be a deity. Hey, it could be Jesus. Whatever your main deity is, you connect with them really strongly and work through them, and that works much, much better. You don't have to, but that does tend to really amplify stuff. Yeah,
I found that's much easier, and and I work with so many now. It's just like, okay, which deity? I'm doing something that I'm doing X, Y, Z. What do I need? Which deity do I need to work with here?
So. Yeah, which is the most appropriate for the job, sort of thing, and to connect with these energies.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think teachers get most out of teaching, especially in magical space?
I would say that just because I'm the teacher and they're the student doesn't necessarily mean I'm always a teacher and they're always a student. They teach me a lot. You learn a lot about yourself as students. Right. If you get frustrated by something they're doing, you quickly sit there and go, okay, why is this coming up? Why is this coming up for me? What's bringing this up? And, here's something I need to work on. Also, students being brand new. See, the thing is, as you practice for a while, you're told, oh, that doesn't work. This doesn't exist. But a brand new student, they don't know that yet.
Right.
And one thing I love to do with a new student is not tell them what doesn't work and just throw really advanced stuff at them and see if they can pull it off. And usually they can. And that's always quite amazing. But yeah, students come up with these ideas that sometimes experienced folks just don't, because we have this set way of how things work, how things don't, and whatever. And of course, some of our ideas don't work at all or totally out there. But sometimes it's like, whoa, that was a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens all the time too. We tend to just kind of, if especially in our coven, we just tend to throw people in and be like, okay, you're going to cast a circle now. Go for it.
Nice. Oh my God, I've had that happen. I've had teachers make me do that. Okay, you're the one leading. I'm like, what?
Yep. But, sometimes just doing that experience really, it's frustrating for the student, but it actually gets them out of their comfort zone and like kind of pushes them into, okay, I guess I got to do this now.
That's true, and you go up to a whole new level doing that. I've had teachers say, "Okay, you're teaching now," and I'm like, "But I barely know this," and then suddenly, my own practice gets far stronger because it's like, "Oh, I better take this really seriously. I've got to teach other people. I have to get it right. I have to really know what's going on. I've practiced twice as much now." Yep, and then your maturity level seems to go up a bit, or what I call magical maturity goes up a bit. And then you're teaching other people. And it's like, oh, this is going really well. And of course, as we all know, the best way to learn is to teach.
Oh, absolutely. And it's weird because it's like, people come to me, it's like, I want to learn from you. And they call me like their teacher or their mentor. And it's kind of like, really? Me? Really? I mean, I was just a student like not so long ago.
That's funny.
Well, it's kind of like, an honor to be called a mentor, but it's also kind of like, okay, I still feel very much a student.
Right, that's true. I'll get used to it one day.
Right. Well, it's kind of like when I got ordained, when I had people starting to call me Rev or Pastor, and it's just kind of like, who are you talking to? What?
Oh my God, I had that in martial arts. My Sifu, he said, okay, go teach some people so you can learn it better. So I'm teaching people, and people started calling me Sifu, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. Just hold on a sec here.
Yeah. But then, then sometimes I realize, I look back on my time and I realize, I've been doing this for over 15 years now. And it's just like, wow, I didn't realize I've been doing it that long.
I know. It's every time somebody goes, how long have you been doing this? I count and I go, well, I think I'm getting kind of old here.
Nah.
Here's something funny that I noticed just the other day is I was recounting some of the silly stuff I did when I first started.
Right.
And after we've been doing it for a few decades, we're all wise and don't do the stupid, well, not as much stupid stuff anymore.
Yeah.
The path goes smoother. But it's sort of funny when you're young, you take more risks for the good or for the bad. But boy, you sure learn a lot when you screw up or when you take a risk and it works really well. So I think some of that is good, but not too much of it. But it was funny. I was just reminiscing the other day about some of the stuff I did when I started on the path. Here I am sometimes giving students hell for, what are you thinking? That's like, oh, wait, I might have done that too. I'm maybe not one to talk here.
I hear you. It's just like, I've seen some people, especially online, it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, I remember doing that too, right? Okay. Yeah.
My rule is just don't put others in danger. Like, if you're going to put yourself in danger, well, I guess we have Darwin's Law or whatever, but don't put others in danger. I have a pretty hard, fast rule about that. That's just not okay. But aside from that, if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we teach too. And, basically, like, listen, if you're going to do something stupid, be prepared to take the consequences of your actions, and, we'll come visit you in jail if it's that extreme, but otherwise... Right. You gotta take it on the chin if you screw up. And we'll let you know.
Yeah. I always hate letting them know. It's just okay. By the way, I have to tell and I always have to remember back when I was a student and when I'm around my teacher, when they say something like just a little like, you're not doing this right. You're like, oh my God, you're so devastated. And sometimes as a teacher, I forget that. And then it's sort of neat. When I started martial arts, I got to be the brand new student again. And I got to remember, oh, this is what the student goes through. It was actually really good for me.
Yeah. It's, I had to kind of pull the 3rd degree thing out a few months ago. And, and I had to tell somebody, no, we can't do this initiation for you right now because you're going through a thing and and I don't want to break you. I think a lot of people when they come into magical practice don't realize just how much you have to grow in order to work this stuff. Because if you're in a state, it could do things and it could be bad.
Definitely. There's something I call magical maturity, just because I don't know any better words for it. But even if you know all the tricks, know all the how-tos,
right,
and you've been led through it a few times, there's just something that you gain from practicing over the years that brings this sort of magical maturity that's different than regular maturity, but just and even aside from wisdom, even though that's involved, that just helps you do the practices better and until people kind of have that.
Well, you get more of a feel of how things work, how the energy moves, how you move energy, how it moves through you. How different spirits feel, that kind of thing.
And a better idea of yourself too.
Absolutely. So what do you think is the future of occult work? Do you see it becoming something that's more mixed in with other people's faith traditions, or do you see it becoming, because I see a lot of paganism becoming way more mainstream now, where it's you can find, like I was talking with Devin Hunter a while back, and he's like, yeah, it's much easier to find other pagans now, where before, even 10 years ago, it was like, oh my God, you're pagan, holy crap.
With the internet, yeah, you can definitely find people. I have a bit of a pessimistic view on this one, I have to admit. I'm finding that it becomes more and more watered down.
Yeah.
And before this, anything that's secret, that could put danger to others or severe danger to yourself was kept secret just because you couldn't find it. Impossible to find. Now it's kept secret because you have to weed through everything else.
Right.
But I find it very unfortunate how watered down things become, and somebody newer to the path, or even some people who've been around a while, they have no way to tell the difference. So maybe just fortunately, teachers find ones they need to, I figure, but still, I
Right.
find that part unfortunate, but at least there's a social outlet now. I get so many people, you're the only person I know that practices this. I feel so alone in this. So I'm so glad that there's community now.
Yeah, I know when I found more of the witchy pagan community, it was just like, wow. And, and being the introvert that I am and having online communities, like one of the first ones that I remember being on was Witch's Voice, which is a fantastic community and still going. And
that's where I started too.
yeah, I love it. And, actually I had conversations with Ren once about Neil Finn, because we both liked Neil Finn as a musician, and so it was a fun conversation over email. But and I throw money towards them every now and again. And
I like that site. They're open-minded enough to include all paths, which I like.
Yeah, and and one of the things that I've been talking about a lot with people is how some groups, some pagan communities can be really insular and not really think about themselves in the greater span of humanity.
Right.
Sometimes I like to say, people need to grow up and realize that they're part of the big, greater human universe and not just their little pagan community.
That makes sense. An outside perspective instead of the inside perspective.
Yeah. Do you think that's important though, to balance the inward work with some sort of outward work?
Yes. Oh yes. If you don't want to go completely freaking unbalanced, oh yeah. I've seen, unfortunately, too many magicians who do too much inner work and not enough outside work. I've noticed magicians in general don't really like to go socialize much, but I find it a healthy other side of things to just get out and be with the, in quotes, normals once in a while, just to be part of the, in quotes, real world. I find that actually does balance you out, and just, whatever your favorite hobby is, go join a bunch of people doing that. And I'm one of those people where my goal, and what I've actually done for probably the last 15 of all those years, is do magic 24/7. That's my goal. Not all magicians like that, but even me, I feel once in a while you just have to get out and do the mundane stuff once in a while. Even if you're integrating magic into that, you just got to go out and socialize, go hiking, go communicate with others. I find that very important. Yeah. And too much just being with yourself and inner stuff, at least in our society, doesn't seem to produce the most healthy of magicians. I don't know how the monks pull it off, but our society.
Well, I mean, monks have community, though. A lot of monks will live in cloistered communities or have association with some sort of community, even if they are a hermit. Monks gotta eat, right?
It's like the hermit down the road. And I saw a wonderful documentary about monks. Oh, what's it called? Anyway, it was about all the monks in the Chinese mountains, and that they go for 2 to 10 years or sometimes the rest of their lives to do a retreat out in the middle of nowhere and just live on their own or live with one other monk. But then there's the other monk half a mile down the road or whatever. So it's a slight community. But I found that sort of amazing because it reminds me of Evermelon, where you go on a retreat away from people for a while, which I find is also important. Yeah. And for a time, set times. Yeah. Just the way we're raised, I'm not so sure going too long is a good idea. But, I don't know.
I mean, being an introvert myself, I like going away on retreat and quiet retreat and being away from everybody, because usually by the time I go, I'm kind of like, you're all people and you all suck.
It's really hard to imagine you an introvert. Just saying.
I'm one of those party introverts, I suppose, where I can give out a lot of energy for a while, but after that it's just like I have to go into my cave and hide under the covers and everybody go away. Right. So you can ask Sarah about that one. she'll see that. She'll tell me to go. Actually, she's like, you need time alone. Go away.
That's funny. It's like, I see it coming.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. That you do need that time to disconnect. And, and I've tried to do that in the last few years, especially going to seminary, because, seminary itself is crazy and just so much stuff all at once. But,
like any degree, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, and I was going to a monastery up in Vina, California. And it was just wonderful. And I usually spend the first couple of days sleeping, but the rest of the time, it's a good way to recharge, good way to just kind of be in a peaceful setting and not worry about my brain having to do things and having to work and having to do like thinking, heavy duty thinking.
Right. Actually, I think the retreat, either once in a while or go out and do the whole 6 or 18 months forever melon is really important, because what we do is subconsciously or whatever, because, being magicians, we're masters at thwarting ourselves, right? We're masters at doing magic for things we want, but we're also masters at getting in our own way and thwarting ourselves. Subconscious thing, the ego doesn't like you to tell it to go away for a bit. I find that being in a retreat, not around the people we know and the situations we know, to be a really great opportunity for growth, because if we're always in the same situation with the same people, well, our friends subconsciously or consciously seek to keep us the same, right? They're comfortable with how we are. If we're doing this drastic change, or they get these fears, oh my God, well, she's still like me, she's still going to be around, or whatever, is she going crazy? Or so it's good sometimes, and then not to be in your daily routine, but to go on retreat away from all of that and just fully connect with magic.
Right.
I think that's so.
Yeah, or like nature, or just your deity, or just with the spirits of the land that you're going to, or whatever. Yeah, I totally agree. It's, I know I find it wonderful when I can do it.
I love that, going camping and hanging out with the nature spirits. That's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, I haven't been camping in a long time. My body doesn't particularly care for it these days.
That's what air mattresses were invented for.
That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. But I used to do a lot of camping when I was younger, and backpacking and hiking, and I always loved it. And one of these days I'll have to tell you my harrowing story of being on Lake Umbagog in New Hampshire, in the middle of a thunderstorm on an island, where
that
I prayed.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, let's just say I had to pray to all the gods there were, because there were trees falling around me. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it was a very big lesson in faith.
I can see that. Wow.
But I cannot deny that spirit works because of that, because all the trees fell around my tent and not on me. So.
Those experiences are what makes the path pretty wonderful, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And and it's amazing to me where people will get caught up in the nuts and bolts of a tradition or a path or whatever spirit they're working with, and like they have to find like this perfect thing or the perfect idol or the perfect bit of incense or something, and forget to really kind of just look at and be with the spirits involved and be with the spirit in the world. I don't know if my question's if my statement's making sense, but.
Oh, it does. I think both are good. You do the, get everything together, the tools, the incense, the whatever, and that's to keep the ego and the mind all busy, right? Okay, so you got the ego and the mind all busy focusing on that, and then the real you, so like the real Athena, can get to work. As opposed to the ego Athena that's trying to like control this or do this or whatever or think all the time. Okay, keep you busy figuring out that incense over there, and then me, I'll just fully connect with what I'm doing.
Right.
I think that's why they threw those in anyway. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff in.
Tools are fun though. I like the shiny sometimes.
Well, and they build power too. You use like the same tool every single day for 5 years. That sucker is
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I have some tools that, you know, depending on what's going on, you know, I'll carry it with me. Like I have a brass cross actually that Sarah made me from the same piece of brass that my Athena is made from.
Nice.
And I use that when I go to church because sometimes church can be really heady and like you can really go out there because it is a Pentecostal practice. And, you know, having that cross with me can really ground me and, you know, keep me from going out a little too crazy or, you know, if I'm not feeling well, it can just keep me from, you know, not overdoing it.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I like the little mini magical tools. Pendants, talismans, whatever, little ones you can carry with. Those are pretty awesome too.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's really interesting is that, you know, I talk to people and, you know, they ask me questions about magic and, you know, what magic is. And, you know, and I start with like the basics. I go, you know, one of the simplest forms is prayer. You're praying for somebody to get something, or you're praying for yourself to get something. So you're asking the universe for something you need and you're moving that energy around. And then, you know, and then I talk about talismans and I was like, well, you know, what is the cross around your neck if not a talisman?
Right.
You know, you're asking Jesus to look after you. Well, there you go.
Pretty much. And then, yeah, all the faith and is connected to the whole thing. Actually, I'd love to talk about prayer.
Sure.
Okay, so there are so many magicians due to their childhood bad experiences that really hate the word prayer, hate anything that looks like a prayer, hate anything that has anything Christian in it, like all the grimoires are just full of that stuff. And they get caught up the whole prayer thing. And to me, okay, so you have prayer. I pray to you to help me with this, or I offer you this incense in this bottle of rum to help me with this. What's the difference?
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I've always seen it too. It's like, okay, you know, I can offer up incense to Hecate and ask, you know, and you know, put something at the crossroads for her to get something done. You know, how's that any different from saying, hey, Jesus, help me, you know, help me find healing for this person?
Some people view prayer as begging, but I don't see it that way. I see it as kind of connecting and opening yourself up enough to say, hey, some help with this would be awesome.
Well, so, you know, sometimes you need help from something bigger than you because the situation's bigger than you. You know, like if somebody has an illness, you know, or somebody's going through a hard time, like an addiction or something. You know, there's things that you can't do anything for, but you can say, hey, deity, hey, spirit, help.
Well, we go to doctors for health problems, right? We go to experts. You see, I view the daemons as, well, aside from pretty awesome, helping me on the spiritual path, also experts. I might go to a doctor or a lawyer for things I can't do. Or I might go to you or Psycho or one of the daemons for things I can't do.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and there's certain things like, because I know I've worked with the dying a lot, and one of the prohibitions I've gotten from deity in doing that work is that I can't do direct healing work for people who have a chronic illness or a terminal illness like a cancer or something like that, because because of the work that I've done with the dying, it can open doors that people shouldn't have opened quite right yet.
Oh, I see.
But the hack for that, which I love calling it a hack.
Nice.
The hack for that is my relationship with Jesus, because Jesus is a healer. And
he can do it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Jesus, I can't do this. Please help this person. Thank you. Right.
Cool. I find for work like that, whether it be Jesus or Floros or whoever, opening up yourself enough to get their attention and get them to come into your space and work with you, right, I find to be the most important part of that. And then prayer, I was reading, what was it, some old Jewish fable or something about one guy was admonishing another one, a semi-retarded guy, for, you're not praying correctly. Well, I don't think the words are maybe 10%.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that experience too, because the leader of my first coven, which is a long story in and of itself. He was not a very nice person, and
we could have the whole bad teacher conversation. Okay, go on.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Well, actually, it'll dovetail nicely, I'm sure. But basically, he was an abusive teacher, and when I lived with him, which was a big mistake, he would see my altar and he's like, "Well, it just looks like a shelf with stuff on it. You're not doing it right. You're not praying right. You're not doing the ritual right." And it's just like, but this is how I do ritual.
Right. I think, like I said before, as teachers, sometimes we lose connection with what it's like to be the newbie and have the teacher talk down to you because you forget how much these people look up to you because you're thinking it's just me. What's the big deal?
Right.
But then if you remember back here, when the teacher says something like, "Oh my God, my world's crumbling, my altar wasn't right." You didn't have that, but I've had that happen before. And I have to remember because some of my students, the looks after I say something without thinking it through enough, just to see them go, "Oh," it's like, "Oh crap."
Yeah. Oh no, I know that feeling too. Because I did feel that at the time,
Uh-huh.
There were other situations too where I was just like, "I'm so sorry."
Right.
But yeah, it's actually a lot about bad teachers have come up in the news lately. I don't know if you've seen some of them through some of the pagan news outlets, but there was a guy, I think it was in Arizona, who was doing sweat lodges, and somebody got killed during a sweat lodge.
Yikes.
Yeah, and he was incarcerated for a time, and he was basically saying, well, people knew the risks going in, and he wasn't really taking responsibility for it, and other things came up, and then there's also been another prominent pagan in the last few months who came up in the news again about being not a pedophile, but sexual harassment. So it's been, there's been a lot of outcry, at least in the pagan community around here, about taking responsibility for these, but then how do we police that? How do we make it? Because there are also people that are like on both sides of these issues that were like, "Oh, but they're so wonderful and blah blah blah," and they wouldn't do that.
Get to know one side of them, right?
Right.
And then also, I've been accused of many things are being evil. So so sometimes it's a witch hunt where, okay, they don't like somebody.
Right.
So if you have an organization that polices teachers, they might be like, "Well, we don't like you. You're too dark. You work with Hecate." Well, so no, you shouldn't teach. You're too dark. You're evil. You're a bad influence on these students.
Right.
So we have to be so careful if we have a governing body sort of thing.
Yeah.
But at least word gets around about the bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to work on not trashing other systems or teachers. Sometimes I get into a big rant and go, there's a Nokia is crap.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work on that. And then when somebody asks, "What do you think of this teacher?" And it's like, and I know they've really screwed up some people in the past. I'm like, hey, how do I not trash them? I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But I have found that most occultists I talk to that have been at it for a while all have a horrid teacher story. Mm-hmm. They've always had one that's just like, wow, a human being did that.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has got one of those stories, and it's kind of amazing.
I think at least, I think most of the teachers I've known have had at least one where they're just like, "Oh yeah," I tell them about my own story and they're like, "Oh yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, this is what happened to me."
Right. I guess we have to remember teachers are human, but also as students, at least know that can happen instead of thinking they're gods or something, and walk. Well, as soon as something seems a little fishy, just walk. Actually, I even tell my own students, if something about me or my teaching doesn't feel right, just go. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I think students should always do that. If something doesn't feel right, even if you're wrong, just say you're wrong, and later you're like, "Oh crap, I shouldn't have done that." I think better to be safe, right? Go with your instincts.
Yeah, I think so too. And and we've tried to code that into our own tradition, like listen, if you go after a while, if you feel this path isn't right for you, then, it's okay if you need to leave.
Right.
And hopefully it will be, good luck to you on your path, and may the journey be good, instead of, instead of some sort of anger thing.
If you leave, we will curse you for the rest of your life.
My first
Don't
coven
do
was
that.
like that. Yeah, my first coven was like that. And, that's part of the reason why we don't have the secrecy thing for our coven, because, I've seen what that does, and I didn't particularly care for it. And, it was just a really nasty thing to do, in my opinion. Okay.
So one thing I've also noticed is, so when you have a teacher and you're learning from them, there's a lot of transmission of energies and powers and et cetera, especially in initiations. And so if your teacher's unethical or doesn't live in a very good way,
right,
you're going to get part of that in with the magic. It's sort of like, taints the magic or follows the magic. So you get that kind of flavor of the magic as the student, which I think is teachers should really try to live 100% ethically and right. Of course, nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, but work towards that, because all the people that we're working with and initiating, they're taking on our crap.
Right.
Especially if we're treating them like crap or whatever. Yeah, they're taking that with them, which isn't right. So I think teachers should really step up a notch.
I think so too.
Training.
Especially with spiritual stuff, because that's, out of all of the crap that I've lived through, the spiritual damage was the hardest, because, I went through a phase where I'm like, well, deity doesn't like me anymore. Deity must not want to work with me anymore. And that's not a hard thing to instill in somebody. I mean, I've seen it in any tradition, really. If somebody is abused in a tradition, like what we call it at City Refuge, which is the Christian church I go to, we call it church burn. And there are a lot of people who come in really broken and who are like, Jesus must hate me because I'm XYZ. I'm queer, I'm black, I'm this, I'm that, whatever.
No, that's unfortunate. Wow.
Yeah. And it's rough. And from my personal experience, it is rough. It took me a long time to get through that to a point where I could do public ritual work again, just on the Wiccan side of things.
Wow.
And that was 2009 when I really started to work that. And, and everything that happened was like 2003, 2004. So.
Well, as teachers are supposed to build the students up, not tear them down.
Right.
So the more we can get towards that, help them find their power instead of, lose it or forget it.
And it's such a cool thing when a student does find their power. And I'm seeing,
hell yeah.
Isn't it awesome? Like I have a couple of students now. They're just kind of like off in the ozone, and it's just amazing to watch them grow and to realize, oh, wait a minute, I do have power. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Oh, what I love is you're teaching students something, they try it for a bit. And it's like, holy crap, they're doing it better than I can.
Yep.
I'm always like, yeah, go team.
Yeah. Well, one of my students, she's an acupuncturist and she does Chinese medicine, and she's working with the Chinese elements, like earth, air, fire, water, but it's different. And it's been amazing to go through this process with her and learning this, because I'm learning so much about this, because I hadn't realized about the different Chinese elements, and like I kind of knew it existed, but I didn't know what some of the stuff was behind it. And plus, with her healing skills on top of that, it's just been phenomenal. It's really been phenomenal.
I love learning from different cultures that students bring in that they've practiced before. That's always awesome.
And just seeing students, the really shy, quiet students suddenly become out there and doing stuff and doing amazing work. And it's just like, wow, this is awesome.
Oh, I know sometimes you look at person A and then a few years later, person B, which is the same person, you're like, whoa, you've done some work. And you can so tell when they're doing the work. It's funny when a student says, yeah, I've been doing my homework, and you're like, uh-huh. And then other times you look at them and say, you've been doing your homework, haven't you?
Yep. Well, that's kind of how we tell, when somebody's ready for initiation. They do something or something comes up, or they come in one day and we're like, you're ready for second degree. Do you want it?
Right. Yeah, if you're still the same as you were last year, you probably haven't been doing enough homework.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know. It's funny. Like sometimes I go through phases where I'm like, I haven't really changed much. Da 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 da.
Oh, sure.
And then I think about where I was. Like, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because of seminary, and graduation, and I'm like, wow, I'm a really different person. I mean, I'm not, but I am.
Right.
I've leveled up.
Uh-huh. I think that's really important for teachers to. Okay, so you're helping the students change and become just amazing people, and a lot of that. And I think it's just important for teachers to keep up the work and to make sure there's still change coming along, so that we're still working on ourselves. Because even if you've been doing it for freaking 80 years, there's still stuff to work on. There's still changes to be made. There's still stuff to delve into and weed out.
Yeah, and learn.
It's always there. So, yeah, I think it's very important for teachers never to forget that. Maybe take a little break, a month or two or whatever, but always on that path. I think it's really, really important.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm seeing that myself. It's like, oh, well, okay, now I've done studying in the seminary. What is next to learn? And I find myself going back to some of my basic witchcraft stuff. And like, oh, I should really go over that again.
Cool.
So, do you think that's important to every now and again just kind of go back to basics and be like, okay, I need to go through this again, and like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That kind of thing.
Actually, I came up with this theory while learning martial arts.
Uh-huh.
I have a theory that whatever it is, what you're taught in your first year or two are the most important things, and somebody could actually become a master adept or whatever you want to call it, just learning the first 2 years of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this theory is, as teachers, we love our students. We teach because we want to help people, right? We want people to get as much as possible. So we find the student and go, oh, that's not working. So we change our teaching methods. We'll do anything to get the darn information across, because we all know that, unfortunately, most people quit within the first year or two, right? So we really want to make sure they learn as much as we can give them.
Right.
So in a way, we give them everything in the first year or two, and then we just expand upon it and fine detail it and go deeper into it for the years after that. But I think that the most important parts are usually the boring stuff, taught in the first year or two. And that's 100% true for martial arts. And I'm starting to think it might be pretty true for magic too. Because what are you taught first? Meditation. Well, can you do magic without meditation? You can, but I at least feel it works a lot better if you get yourself out of the way.
Yeah. Well, that, and I know for our tradition, grounding and centering, just making sure that you have a foundation to work from.
Right.
And even I have to remind myself every now and again, like, okay, ground and center, ground and center, ground and center.
Well, when you get into the higher workings, which you can even do in your first year or two, grounding and centering is so important. Amongst the Qigong folks, we talk about people with qi deviations and imbalances and all the energy up in their head. Unfortunately, a lot of magicians run into this because they don't do the couple things we've talked about. Get outside once in a while in the mundane world, go for a hike, and then also the grounding and centering.
Right.
Yeah, you have to do the crazy amounts of grounding and centering if you're doing a lot of work, especially the advanced work, I feel. Yeah.
And it's really strange because, like, I've, being as many years as I've been in my practice already, there's some things that have become instinctual, like, just body memory now, like how to do it. But, every now and again I get into a situation like, why am I feeling so weird? Oh, I should ground and center. Oh, I forgot to do it before we went in. Crap.
Right. Yeah, there's a few basics that I first learned that I like to do daily or do.
Mm-hmm.
You just very, very, very regular basis. And yep, grounding and centering is one of them.
Yep.
Very, very important.
Yeah. I know I'm having to relearn some things just because I've been a little out of practice for some things. So, but I think that's okay because it's good for me to go through this again. But, if especially if I'm doing it in our coven meetings, it's good for the new people to learn this stuff. So it's not like I'm wasting anything by going over the basic stuff again. And it's good for people that have been in a while to rethink it or maybe think of a better way to do it or whatever.
I think so. And you also you learn it deeper. Like, so say you have a teacher that tells you something, day one is your newbie, and then you're sitting around after a couple of years of training with a new day one class, and you understand the words of the teacher deeper.
Right.
Because they can resonate deeper with you, and you're understanding on a different level instead of just on the words level. Maybe you're getting it on all three levels or spiritual levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same with reading books. If you read a book once, you understand it, and then you read it a couple years later, it goes deeper. Read it 10 years later, it goes deeper.
Yep.
Read it 20 years later, whoa.
Right, absolutely. And, although my reading is kind of on hold at the moment because I think my brain's kind of rebelling against all the reading that I did in seminary.
I get that too. I get periods where I read like crazy, and then periods where like, I don't want to see a book.
Right.
It's funny.
So we are out of time, unfortunately.
Are we? Oh, we were just yakking away, weren't we?
Yeah, well, that happens, and that's okay. It's all good. So, if people want to talk to you or find out more about what you do, where should they go?
Enochian.org.
Right.
So ENOCHIAN.org is my website, and there's email links all over there.
Excellent.
And that is by far the best way. Or I'm on Facebook under Nightshade Belladonna.
Okay. And we'll have the links to that in the show notes. And links to your page in the show notes and all that stuff.
Awesome. So nice talking to you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you too. And thanks for being on This Week in Heresy.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Athena for joining us this week. And as always, if you have comments, questions, or would like to read the show notes, you can go to thisweekinheresy.com. There, you can also subscribe to the show via iTunes or the Stitcher app, join our forums, or follow us on Twitter at TWIH Podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.